Yo, the 2025 AFCON round of 16 is finally here. Oh my gosh. My throat is hurting from screaming, man. That's how excited I am. The 2025 AFCON round of 16 is officially here, and you know what that means. These are my round of 16 predictions. In today's video, I'm going to be predicting the result of each of the 8 games that will be taking place over the next week and predicting which nations I think will advance to the quarterfinals and which nations sadly will get eliminated. As always, if you agree with my predictions, remember to leave a comment down below and be sure to subscribe to the channel as I'm almost at 6,000 subscribers and I can't do it without you guys. But without further ado, let's get right into these predictions. Starting off with the first match, we have Senegal against Sudan. I think this is actually a very interesting match because these teams were in the same World Cup qualifying group. Now, in the first meeting they had, it did end in a 0-0 draw, but in their most recent matchup, Senegal did beat Sudan 2-0 and it was a very convincing win by them. Now, if you look at Senegal from the very start of this AFCON, they were always the favorites, right? If you look at their team, their attack is absolutely phenomenal, and even their country, in terms of their history, they are a very prolific footballing nation in Africa. So far in this tournament, Senegal have been very good. In the group stages, they ended up finishing first place with 7 points as we saw them beat Botswana and Benin 3-0 each, and they did end up getting that draw against DR Congo. Now, I will say in that draw, there was a certain point in that game where I thought Congo could have beat Senegal. I didn't think Pap Thiaw made the right adjustments. I don't think his managerial changes worked as he would have liked, and I think he could have made better substitutions in that game. And that is the only caveat I would say I have with Senegal, is I'm not 100% sure about their manager yet. But against Sudan, their team is definitely the favorites. Sudan so far in this AFCON have not been good, and to be fair, this whole year Sudan have not been playing good, but in this AFCON they still haven't scored a goal from open play. 0 goals from open play. The only goal that they've technically scored was an own goal against Equatorial Guinea, and in that game I thought Equatorial Guinea were the better team and they probably should have won that game. But other than that game, we saw them lose 3-0 against Algeria. We saw them lose 2-0 against a struggling Burkina Faso. I don't think this is going to be a blowout win by Senegal because I do think Sudan are a good team, but they just can't finish. They don't have good enough attackers. So for that reason, I'm going to back Senegal to win this game. Moving on to the next matchup, we have Mali against Tunisia. These teams seem to come up against each other every single time, and every time there's always some bullshit that happens. In the last 6 matchups between these teams, there haven't been more than 2 goals in the whole match combined. And on top of that, we also saw that crazy game where the referee blew the final whistle in the 85th minute. So we already know that this game is going to cause some serious drama. But with that being said, who do I think is going to win? I think if you look at Mali at the current moment, they're not looking the best. If you look at them in their last 4 matches, they've drawn every single game, and they're all very low scoring games as well. But if you look at Tunisia, yes, they won a few games, they lost a few games, but at least they're scoring some goals. I think a very interesting matchup in this game will be the midfield battle between Hannibal Mejri and Sangare of Mali. I think both of these players have been very good so far in this tournament, and they're arguably one of their country's best players. With that being said, the likelihood of this game finishing a 1-0, a 1-1 draw, and going into penalties is very, very high. But I do think that Tunisia have been scoring a decent amount of goals in recent games, and for that reason, I actually think Tunisia could win this game. I feel like a lot of people will predict Mali to win this game, and to be fair, Tunisia haven't been the best. Obviously, we saw them draw 1-1 against Tanzania, which was not a great result for them. But against Uganda, they were very good. In the second half against Nigeria, where they scored the 2 goals, they also looked pretty good. So for that reason, this may be a crazy underdog shout, but I'm gonna back Tunisia to beat Mali and advance to the quarterfinals. Moving on to the next game, we have Morocco against Tanzania. Honestly, I'm incredibly surprised that Tanzania made it this far because at the start of this tournament, I was saying that they are arguably one of the worst teams in this tournament, and I would be very surprised if they made it out of the group stages. But hey, they made it out, and congratulations to them. But sadly for Tanzania, there's no way they beat Morocco. If Morocco lose this game against Tanzania at home, that will be a national disgrace. There will be national outrage in Morocco if they end up losing this game against Tanzania. But with that being said, I do think Morocco are definitely the clear favorites. Look how good Morocco were in their 3 group stage games. They were absolutely incredible. Defensively, they were very solid. In the midfield, they were fantastic. We saw Brahim Diaz score 1 goal in every game, and he is the top goal scorer. We saw El Kaabi score 2 bicycle kicks. He did it in the opening match, and then he did it again. Absolutely insane. Now, Tanzania, they have looked pretty good defensively, and in their 3 matches in the group stages, they were decent, right? They weren't bad. They didn't concede a lot of goals, and they were actually even close to getting that draw against Nigeria. But with that being said, I think Morocco looked like the best team in this tournament so far. So I could see Morocco getting multiple goals in this game, and I do think they will advance to the quarterfinals. Moving on to the next match, we have South Africa against Cameroon. Hugo Broos against Hugo Broos's old team. Obviously, Hugo Broos is the current manager of South Africa, but he won the 2017 AFCON with Cameroon. Now, both of these teams did end up getting 2 wins in the group stages. South Africa ended up losing the 3rd game against Egypt, when Cameroon ended up drawing against Ivory Coast. Now, let's start off with South Africa, because I think they've been pretty good. I think other than that Egypt game, which did have a few pretty questionable refereeing decisions, I thought they were fantastic. I thought against Angola, there was a period of that game where Angola were pretty dominant, but I will say South Africa did come back into the game very strong, and they ended up getting the win. And against Zimbabwe, once again, Zimbabwe scored 2 goals, but South Africa scored 3. So with that being said, it's clear as day that South Africa's weak point in their team is their defense. So that is an area that Cameroon could possibly punish them. But if we look at Cameroon, they can also be punished. It's fair to say that yes, in the group stages, they were very good and they didn't lose a game, but South Africa have a very, very strong attack. They have some very good players, some very fast players. Loyal Foster playing in that striker position, he could possibly score a goal. If we look at Cameroon in their last match against Mozambique, at the start of the game, I thought Mozambique were the better team, and I was very surprised when Cameroon ended up conceding early on, but they did very well to come back in the game, and they did end up getting the win. Now, in my opinion, I will say that the formation that Cameroon usually plays is very, very strange. I feel like they play with a lot of defensive players. I don't know. I find it a very strange formation, but at the same time, I feel like it works. I feel like they've been very good in the group stages, and this is going to be a very, very close game. I do think I'm going to edge it to South Africa. Now, I know this looks a little bit unlikely. I think Cameroon are definitely the favorites to win this game, but I'm going to predict that South Africa are going to make it to the quarterfinals. Moving on to the next match, we have Egypt against Benin. I feel like most people will automatically write off Benin, but I'm not doing that. I think Benin are a very, very good team. Now, in the group stages, they were in a very tough group. They had teams like Congo, they had teams like Senegal. Now, they did end up getting a win against Botswana, which did bring them into these knockout stages, but against both Congo and against Senegal, they didn't look that good. But we also can't forget how good Benin were in the World Cup qualifiers, where for a certain point in that qualification, they were sitting pretty comfortably in that 2nd place position. Now, obviously on the last match day, they got an embarrassing loss against Nigeria, which brought them to play in the World Cup playoffs. But I still think Benin have a decent chance against Egypt. Now, in Egypt's last match in the group stages, they ended up drawing against Angola, which wasn't really the result that they were looking for. But I will say that Hossam Hassan did make some crucial changes to their team, and he kept some of their best players on the bench, like Mo Salah, like Omar Mahmoud, because obviously he wanted them to be perfectly ready for this round of 16 game. And I think that was a good decision. Like I said, they didn't get the result they wanted against Angola, but now some of their star players are going to be perfectly ready for this game. And with that being said, I do think Egypt will beat Benin. I think it will be tough, but I think keeping some of their best players on the bench in their last game is very, very useful for this game. And with that being said, I got Egypt advancing. Moving on to the next game, we have Nigeria against Mozambique. Let me tell you something. Mozambique have been pretty shocking to me in this AFCON 2025. Now, yes, they only won 1 out of 3 games, but against Ivory Coast, against Cameroon, they were very, very good. And realistically, in another universe, they could have probably won both of those games. Now, if you look at Nigeria, obviously in terms of their attack, they've been absolutely incredible. And Ademola Lookman, I was criticizing this player before this game because I was saying that in the World Cup qualifiers and in certain games with Nigeria, I don't think Ademola performs to where he should be performing to. I don't think he plays with the standard that he should be playing at. But so far in this AFCON, he's been absolutely incredible. Scoring goals, getting assists. He's been the best player for Nigeria so far. I have to back the Super Eagles in this game. I think it may be a close game. I do think Mozambique could possibly upset Nigeria, but I'm going to predict Nigeria to win this game and they will advance. Moving on to the next game, we have, in my opinion, the best round of 16 game, Algeria against DR Congo. Ooh, this is going to be a crazy match. Honestly, this is going to be a fantastic game. I think both of these teams have some very impressive players. I think both of these teams have been very impressive so far in this AFCON, and I could see this going either way. I think both teams have a very good chance. Now, me supporting DR Congo in this AFCON, I hope they win, right? I really want DR Congo to win this game, and I think this matchup in the round of 16 is absolutely crazy. But at the same time, Algeria have looked fantastic. They've been scoring so many goals. They've already scored 7 goals in their first 3 group stage matches. And this tournament is pretty much a home tournament for Algeria. Algeria obviously are right beside Morocco. The amount of Algerian fans that we're seeing at these games is crazy. There's so many Algerian fans. And I do think with that support, I think they definitely have the advantage over DR Congo. But with me supporting DR Congo, I gotta back them. I have to back DR Congo. Algeria do have a lot of things going for them coming into this game, but I think DR Congo are gonna do it. I really respect DR Congo. They had a good tournament in the last AFCON, and I do think they will again. So I'm gonna predict DR Congo to beat Algeria, and they will advance to the quarterfinals. And finally, the last match is Cote d'Ivoire against Burkina Faso. Look at Cote d'Ivoire so far in this tournament. They've been incredible. They were in a pretty tough group with teams like Cameroon, with teams like Mozambique, but every time they ended up coming out on top. Obviously, they did draw that game against Cameroon, but if you look at their last game against Gabon, they were fantastic. Gabon scored 2 early goals. They were up 2-0. Now, obviously, we know Gabon are not the best defensively, but it was very impressive for Ivory Coast to come back. They won 3-2. They scored that 90th minute goal, and they end up finishing first place in their group. Now, honestly, I think Ivory Coast have arguably a top 5 team in this AFCON. I think if you look at their defense, they have some very solid players. In the attack, they have some incredible players. Amad Diallo is going crazy in this AFCON, but I will say in the midfield, that may be the weak point for Ivory Coast. Now, I will say they still have a good midfield. Obviously, Kessié is a very experienced midfielder, but I think that is probably the weakest point in their team. Now, if you look at Burkina Faso, in terms of their results, they've been pretty good. The only loss they've had was against Algeria, which they only lost 1-0. We saw them beat Equatorial Guinea, and they also beat Sudan. But at the same time, Sudan have been very disappointing this year, and Equatorial Guinea were pretty shocking in this tournament. So I can't really say that Burkina Faso has been playing the best football. I think in previous years, we've seen them play better football than they currently are. And with that being said, Ivory Coast are the current AFCON holders. They obviously have a lot of support in these tournaments. So for that reason, I do think Ivory Coast will beat Burkina Faso. Cote d'Ivoire will beat Burkina Faso, and they will advance into the quarterfinals. And that's the end of this video. Those were my predictions for the round of 16 in the AFCON 2025 tournament. As always, if you agree with my predictions, remember to leave a comment down below. But if you disagree with my predictions and you think there may be a few upsets here and there, remember to leave your predictions down below, and I'll be sure to reply to every single comment. And obviously, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more videos.